Hello, hello. Happy Tuesday. Let me make sure this is working. Okay. Okay. Here we are. All right. Welcome, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Hope you're having a decent week so far. If you are here, let me know. Say hi, leave me an emoji. I'd love to know who I'm talking to. If you watch the replay, leave a comment as well. As always, if there is any questions or comments or anything, you can put them in the chat or you can send me a DM. We're talking about a really fun and spicy topic today, so I'm super excited about that. Let me get this thing out of the way so that I can see the comments. Okay. All right, so we are going to talk about sex. Let's do it. I know that it can be a very tough topic sometimes and a really awkward conversation. I feel like never when you're in school, even when you're taking sex ed, like never are you, here's how you talk about it with your partner. Here's how you figure out what you like. Here's how you, right? Like we're not having those kinds of conversations. So all of this is often very new. It's not something that you're going to your friends about and saying like, how do you, how do you improve your sex life? What do you do about it? And maybe you do, and that's awesome. But what I find is that for most of us, that's not the case. And so I just want to talk about really what the research shows can really help improve your sex life. And regardless of how long you've been together and all that sort of thing. So let's talk about it. All right. First and foremost, again, it's awkward. We're not taught how to do it. So no matter if you have a really good sex life, like this is still a video for you. If you feel like it could improve, this is the video for you. If this makes you really uncomfortable, this is the video for you. What I want to talk about is the key that improves everything, and that is talking about it. So talking about your sex life with your partner is what they show makes the biggest difference. Why? So the University of Toronto, they did a really large study with almost 2,000 people. And in that study, they basically found that it's how people think about their sex life that really goes on to determine the actual satisfaction of said sex life, and specifically what they thought that entailed. So there were a group of people that said that if we are right for each other and things are good, like I shouldn't have to work on my sex life. It should just naturally be there. It should just naturally come. And, if we're soulmates, this is where this just happens. Versus there's this other subset that they found of people that were like, yeah, if I want things to be good, I'm going to have to put some work into it in order for it to be good. And what they found is that this pot of people, the people who said, yeah, I'm going to have to work on it, significantly reported better and happier sex lives than the ones that thought it should just happen. And I think that just like with anything, that this makes sense, right? Like if we want a good marriage, we are going to have to put some work into it. I think that even there can be that pot of people that says like, if my marriage is struggling, then I'm just not with the right person. And I mean, I've talked to somebody last week who they had gone through 4 marriages and they continue to do that, right? They look for like the right marriage when really it's, are you putting in the right work? So this makes sense to me. But when you look at that, what is the work? What kind of work do we need to do? what they find is that it's actually communicating about it, communicating and creating what they call kind of a playbook. If you're a football fan, this is how I think about it, is you have like, a list of plays, but even those plays, whichever team you're going to be playing that week, you might, okay, we're going to use this and this, we're going to tweak this one because of their defense, we're going to, right, like, and this is how it also should work with our sex lives, right? Like, what do you like? How often do you like it? What makes you in the mood to want to do it? Really kind of answering these things. And that has to be updated based on what is going on in your life, right? Like, you can't create this playbook when you're first dating and expect that it's going to continue your entire marriage, your entire relationship. That just isn't how life works. And especially for those of us military spouses, where life kind of changes a lot, right? Whether now we're in a period of moving, or, we're looking at deployment, or we're looking at something else, right? Like, that playbook will have to adjust every single time. And this is the best kind of work to do. But when they actually research, like, are couples doing this, it's actually pretty low, right? Even couples that report really good communication and we're on the same page about a lot of things, when that question of, are you talking to your spouse about this? It kind of tanks, because, and maybe we're talking, and this is what I always tell my clients, it can't be just a, hey, do you want to? And sure, no, I'm really tired, right? Like, it can't be those conversations, but really the like deeper, what is it that you want? What is it that you like? And a big part of this also is you've got to know the answer to those questions to be able to communicate them to your partner. And this is also the other thing, is that we're not really taught how to do this. I think often in the roles that we're put in as the military spouse, we spend a lot of our time focusing on what everyone else needs, what's going to make everyone else happy so that I am happy. And we don't, or really aren't encouraged to spend that time to think about us. But just like anything in life, with how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your body, how you feel about sex, how you feel about what makes you happy and what feels good, all of those things change over time. And so we need to be constantly updating our playbook with just ourselves in order to be able to then communicate it with our partner. Interestingly, research does say that like the first 2 to maybe 3 years of marriage, there is kind of this honeymoon period when it comes to sex specifically, where both people report really high levels of satisfaction and not really like need to do a lot of work, so to speak. And that after those 2 to 3 years, that's really where satisfaction kind of starts to wane, unless you're having those kinds of conversations. So if you're past 2 to 3 years in your relationship, you definitely need to make sure that you are having these kinds of conversations with your spouse. And like I said, you've got to have these conversations with yourself first. What is it that makes you feel good? What is it that you like? What is it that you don't like? What gets you in the mood? What kind of frequency do you like? How comfortable are you with your body? How do you feel about yourself? Right? And know the answers to these things first. And here's what I say is, if there's any question of those that you're like, oh, I don't want to talk about that, or it's not right, like, that's where you really need to dig in. Those are your cues that this is probably something that you need to pay attention to. And you get comfortable even just thinking it and on your own first, because if you're not the ability for somebody else to meet those needs and to make you happy, like, goes really down the tubes. So really figuring out like what's getting in the way there too, and making sure that you're being kind to yourself, especially when it comes to like how you're feeling about yourself. Interestingly, the research shows that sex in general is one of the most vulnerable acts that you can do with another person. I think that that's not surprising, but talking about sex and talking about your sex life is even more vulnerable. And that also makes sense to me. But think about it, right? Like, to have this conversation maybe with the lights on, and so I just want to like point it out that it definitely isn't just like as easy as, let's do this, check 1 2 3, and then we have the conversation 1 2 3, and then like, yay, it's great. There's just a lot of things that can be really hard about this. But when it comes to actually having this conversation with your spouse, like overall what we find is like, I like knowing what my spouse wants because I'm more likely to do it that way, right? And we have to think of it the same way with our spouse. Like, if our spouse will likely do more of what you want if you tell them that that's what you want, because they want to make you happy, they want to make you feel good. And so that is the reason that we have these conversations. It's not, I think we so often think like, if I bring this up, are they going to think that, I don't know, that I don't like it, or that this and that and the other. And regardless, I think just if I know what to do versus me guessing, I would rather choose to know what to do every single time. Right. So I think that in this situation, if you now going to have the conversation, what I really like to do here is a lot of feeling words. I feel blank when you blank. I feel, and really thinking about like that, what gets you in the mood kind of thing, right? And I'm not talking about like physically, but hey, when all the chores are done, when you help me out, when I see you doing those dishes, right? Or when you acknowledge like all that I'm doing at home, and like really thinking like big picture, what gets you in the mood, not just like in the moment, what gets you in the mood, what kinds of things make you feel really loved and connected that would lead you to want to have sex. All of those things are really important. The Gottman Institute did find out that couples, specifically with the man, when the man participates in household chores, women reported being more likely to want to have sex. No joke. Doing chores. So tell this to your spouse. Doing chores equals that, right? And it really, I know at least for me, that's a big deal. It's like helping me to get things off my plate so that I'm not so like exhausted by the end of the night. Like, absolutely. So really thinking all of these kind of big picture things, and now coming and having those conversations. I feel blank when you blank. And also talking about like when you don't want to, because I think that one thing that can come up with that is the person who doesn't want to can feel guilty for not wanting to, or the person who wants to and is being told that their partner doesn't want to. I think sometimes we can make a lot of inferences about that they don't care about me, they don't find me this, they don't, right? And so I think that the more you can get out on the table, the more that all of those questions go away. Because if I'm telling my spouse, if I am exhausted at the end of the day, I never will want to do it. Let's get me less exhausted at the end of the day, right? And so now we're focusing on that versus like him going, she doesn't care about me, she doesn't want me, she doesn't love, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? So all of that on the table ends up leading to better things. And I kind of like to just joke around with the awkwardness when you're first starting to have these conversations, because if you've never done this before and now you do it, it is going to feel awkward. Like, I will just tell you that right now. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong about you and your conversation or whatever. It's just a really uncomfortable thing the first time. And so that in and of itself, like, play into that, have a laugh about it. make it into something that is connecting in and of itself. So answer the questions, all of those questions first. Talk to your spouse about it. Continually talk about this. Again, you change over time. Your preferences change over time. Make sure that that playbook is also changing over time. The other thing that I really, really recommend when it comes to sex is to schedule it. Literally, like, put it in the calendar. And sometimes it might be like looking at the week ahead and saying, like, this is going to be a good day. And a lot of my clients hate this at first, like literally hate this recommendation because, like, it's not sexy, it's not fun, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, it's not. And I get that, but it's way more likely to happen in this way. And if it comes down to actually having it happen versus not having it happen, I mean, it kind of depends, I guess, on what you're looking for there. But I think it can be something like, I know this really connecting moment is coming. I think that there is always, like, when you get to that moment and I'm really not feeling it, I am never about like, we're going to power through this and just do it. So I think that just having that conversation there. But what the research shows is that the likelihood of it happening, if you actually schedule it, goes way up. And you're actually more likely to have those spontaneous moments throughout if you have a time scheduled. I mean, interesting, right? So even if it's like, we're looking at the monthly calendar, things are really crazy, they're out of town, whatever, like, okay, we're gonna this day, right? Like, just knowing that that is coming, and that, I think, can put a lot of those also like anxieties and wonderings and worryings at ease. The last thing I really want to talk about when it comes to this is like really looking at sex as like a broad definition versus like just intercourse, because there's a lot of really different kinds of sex and intimacy that can happen that are really also very connecting, very important. And so I think recognizing your comfort level, like, you don't have to do something that you're not comfortable with just to do it. And so really playing off of that. For example, I have some clients right now who are working through an infidelity. And so sex is obviously like a very sensitive, hot button issue for them. And for her, she's like, I just don't feel like I can, like, I don't trust enough yet. It makes me very nervous. It makes me very uncomfortable. I'm worried about what happens if I don't have sex and what that will mean for us. And so we've really been exploring, like, what are some other ways that you can play with that intimacy that feel good. And both of them are reporting that, that it's definitely getting better. They're looking forward to it. And so just kind of being open to different things there as well. So overall, talk about sex, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. I know it doesn't seem super sexy. I know this isn't like when you watch a movie that you don't see this happening, but I guarantee you that this is what will make a difference. And this is what will make you actually get what you want from sex, from that connection with your spouse. Because the other thing I find is that, people are doing it and then not feeling satisfied, and now they're feeling less connected than they were even before. So really getting clear on what it is you want, really talking about it with your spouse, really being open to a variety of things that not only like get you in the mood, but that also can happen when you're in the middle, like seeing sex as more broad than just intercourse. And scheduling it, like literally, truly, like put it in the calendar. You can come up with a fun name that only you all know. I think one of my clients called like cheetah time. And so which now that I'm saying it, but like, the animal, not, and it was like this fun thing, and they would see it and they would smile and they would laugh, right? And so even just leading up to it, it was such a connecting thing, and it's more likely to happen. So again, it's not sexy. They're not showing it in all the movies that you're watching, but this is in real life. Like, these are the kinds of things that make you feel happy and connected and loved, and all of the things that sex is supposed to be. Now, I will talk about, probably in another live stream, just because we don't have enough time. There's a lot of military barriers, like what if they're gone forever, and all this stuff. So we'll talk about those kinds of things. But I also want to say that if you have any wounds like around sex, if there has been anything that has made sex not feel this fun, connecting, happy thing, like, absolutely reach out to someone, because that is what it needs to be. And if it's anything but that, like, that is work that also needs to happen. If you're having a hard time starting these conversations or continuing these conversations, that would also be a really great time to reach out, because it isn't something that we're taught how to do. It isn't something that is like shown or modeled or anything like that. So absolutely reach out. That is something that, again, it's just really easy, because once you start doing it, now you know how to do it, and the rest is history. You can keep doing that and updating that playbook till the end of time. So, and if you're like, there's something else, like, just reach out. I would so much rather you reach out, get the question answered, figure out what path you need to be on, be really happy when it comes to this. I think that when it comes to sex, it can feel either just a small part of our overall relationship, but when it's not working, it can feel really huge. And partly that's because it is such a big connecting thing. And so if I'm not feeling connected to my spouse, that often is the first thing to go. And so really getting that back on track really helps it to kind of, again, it takes the pressure. It's not such a big thing. It doesn't have to be all of your relationship. So lots of stuff to cover. It's all easier said than done, and I recognize that, but laugh at the awkwardness, connect in the awkwardness of it until it really gets rolling, and then most of all, have fun and connect, and let it be the really great thing that sex is supposed to be. So with that said, again, questions. If you need help, let me know. I am always here. Find me on, DM me, DM me on Instagram, wherever you want to find me, email me, send a carrier pigeon. I don't care. I'm here. I'm happy to answer all of these questions. I have a podcast episode about it coming out, I think, next week. You all get the first sneak peek. And as always, if there's anything else you want to hear from me, let me know as well. So I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you're taking care of yourself, and I will be back next week with another fun topic for us military spouses. Bye, y'all.